This narrative is drafted from an actual interview with Red Richardson at the age of 75 years old, while he was living in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Red was interviewed in his home by Bertha P. Timpton on June 11, 1937. Red was sought out for this interview because he was a pioneer who helped to shape the society in Oklahoma. I'm the grandson of Luther C. Richardson, fifth son of Luther's second oldest daughter. This narrative is dedicated to the long-enduring, strong African-American men in my family, which came here on slave ships owned and operated by the Richardsons, Paynes, and Smith family, who were powerful financial families running plantations out of St. Andrews, Jamaica, North Carolina, and Virginia. They financially backed slave ships, Nancy, Sally, and the Marble, which they used to transport slaves for trade and labor to support the sugar, cotton, tobacco, and rum needs of the United Kingdom. Research by Paquita Richardson, the youngest daughter of Luther, traces and ties our roots to the British Triangle, in which these merchant ships, the Nancy and Sally, split and spread our family from the slave coast of Freetown, Western Area, Sierra Leone, Africa, to St. Andrews, Jamaica, Mount Ephraim Plantation, to Staffordshire, England, and ultimately splitting us up for support to the enslaved American labor force on Mount Ephraim Plantation in Somerset, Maryland, formerly in colonial Virginia, dating back to 1682, finally traveling to the long, hot trail into Texas. She recalls the most profound discovery of trying to understand the DNA matching trail of our male lineage, or should I say the most obvious from this account. She read, "I later realized from my researches one fact. The reason our family became entwined in the DNA of these powerful political and influential people is not because our fathers and great-grandfathers' roots were white, but because our mothers were women. The enslaved women, in fact, endured a different level of exploitation than the men, because many were also treated as sexual objects. They labored as field hands or as servants in their masters' homes. Then, at the end of a long and exhausting day, they were expected to provide sexual services to planters, managers, and visitors. Such acts resulted in many British colonial families having two ethnic strands. It became common practice for one strand to remain in the Caribbean, while the other returned to Britain. All accounts are based on research and factual information available by DNA testing and society historical records, which are viable, and from our own family oral trails, which continue to be confirmed and recorded. No intent to degrade any individuals during this inspired account of the Richardson men of either race. Red was also a carpenter and remodeled homes before Luther Richardson was born. He carried himself around whites and could stand toe-to-toe with everyone. He had a red cast to his skin and stood at 5'11" and carried a 220-pound body. His hair was curly black, he had a nice laugh, and would stand with his right hand on his hip. He wore suits and always wore a hat. He was as well-versed on household roots. He was a well-respected justice of the peace and held court. I was born July 21st, 1862, at Grimes County, Texas. Smith Richardson was my father's name, and Eliza Richardson was my mother's. My father came from Virginia, and my mother, she was born in Texas. We lived in so many places around there, I can't tell you just what, but we lived in a log house most of the time. We slept on the floor, on pallets, on one quilt. My grandmother's name was Nellie Lowry, and my grandfather named Cy Lowry. I was only 3 years old. Well, I'll tell you what we ate. We ate cornbread, beans, vegetables, and got to drink plenty of milk. We ate rabbits, fish, possums, and such as that, but we didn't get no chicken. I don't have no favorite food, I don't guess. We wore shirts, long shirts, slid up the side. I didn't know what parents was until I was 14. In Grimes County, it ain't even cold these days, and I never wore no shoes. I married in a suit made of broadcloth. It had a tail on the coat. Yes, I remember the master's house, but I don't know that I can describe it to you. You have history for that. Master Ben Hadley and Mistress Minnie Hadley, they had 3 sons, Josh, Henry, and Charlie. Didn't have no overseer. We had to call all white folks, poor or rich, Mr., Master, and Mistress. Master Hadley had about 2,000 acres. He had a big number of slaves. They used to wake him up early in the mornings by ringing a large bell. They said they used to whip him, drive him, and sell him away from that chillin'. I'd hear my old folks talk about it. Said there wasn't no such thing as going to jail. The master stood good for anything his nigger done. If the master's nigger killed him another nigger, the old master stood good. They never had no schools for Negro children. I can't remember the date of the first school. It's in a book someplace. But anyway, I went to one of the first schools that was established for the education of Negro children. You know, Mr. Negro was always a church man, but he don't mean nothing. I don't have no favorite spiritual. All of them's good ones. Whenever they baptize, they sing, hot from the tune, the domeful sound, which starts like this. Come live in a man and view his ground where he must surely lie. I'm a member of the Tabernacle Baptist Church myself, and I think all people should be religious, 'cause Jesus died for us all. The patrollers used to run after me, but I'd jump them. They used to have a permit to go from one plantation to another. You had to go to an old master and say, I want to go to such and such place. And if you had a permit, they didn't bother you. The patroller would stop you and say, where are you going? You got a permit to go in such place? You say, yes, sir, and show that pass. Then he wouldn't bother you, and if he did, old master would get on him. When 10 o'clock come, which was bedtime, the slaves would go to their cabins, and some of them would go stealing chickens and hogs, steal sweet potatoes and cook them and eat them, just getting all kind of devilment. Old master would give them Saturday afternoon off, and they had them Saturday night breakdowns. We played a few games such as marbles, mumble peg, and cards. Just anything to pass off the time. It was one of the games we play, and I sure did like it too. She is my sweetheart as I stand. Come and stand beside me, kiss her sweet and hug her near. On Christmas, they make eggnog, drink whiskey, and kiss their girls. Some wore charms to ward off the devil, but I don't believe in such. I do believe in voodoo, like this. People can put propositions up to you and fool you. Don't believe in ghosts. Tried to see them, but I never could. Old master didn't turn my father loose and tell him we was free. They didn't turn us loose till they got the second threat from President Lincoln. Good old Lincoln. There was nothing like him. Booker T. Washington was one of the finest Negro educators in the world, but old Jefferson Davis was against the colored man. I married in 1887 to Julia Lee, an old-time sweetheart. We had an old-fashioned wedding, lots of good eats. We have 5 children, 2 girls children. Luther Richardson is a barber here in my shop. Johnny R. is in New York. And Newt Richardson, he's here working out the packing plant. While in Texas, I ran a grocery store and learned the shoe trade from an old Dutchman. Later, I left Texas and moved to Coffeyville, Kansas. While there, I worked at a shoe shop. He then moved to Oklahoma in 1891 and settled on 160 acres of land. Later, established a shop for myself. I think since slavery is all over, it has been a benefit to the colored man. He's got more freedom now. Following, the interviewer then described what she saw. Mr. Red Richardson owns and operates a shoe store with approximately $1,000 worth of equipment and a barbershop in the 300 block of East 1st Street. The contemporary Oklahoma City Directory notes that Red C. Richardson and his son, Red Newton Richardson Jr., operated a shoe repair shop at 311 Northeast 1st in conjunction with barber John Barnwell. Polk's Oklahoma City Directory, 1937, pages 619, 1220.